Okay. So now we are going to be doing those functions that are like the rock in the shoe, rational functions, and rational functions with stuff x's in the bottom, and they have asymptotes and all that stuff, and non-permissibles, and radical functions. Oh, everything has to be positive underneath the square root sign, all that stuff, right? So these are the ones that have all these restrictions on it. So that's why they're kind of put together, because these are like the pain functions, right? They make us do other things that we don't have to do with, just x squared and x to the fifth and this. I mean, we have to do common denominators when it's rational. We got to, and radical functions. We've got to know our perfect squares, all those things. There's just so many things that come into play when you are doing this stuff. Now, if we're going to do a bunch of radical functions, you should kind of have an idea of, well, what is a rational function? What does this radical always look like? Square root x, okay? That's like the basic one. You're not going to get any more basic than that. Now, if you look at, let's just square root all these x's. What do you do if you square root -4? It's not defined, right? -1, not defined. Square root 0 is 0, okay? Some people still think, no, you can't do that. Yes, you can. Try any calculator. It'll tell you. Square root 1 is 1. Square root 4 is 2. Square root 9 is 3. Square root 16 is 4, okay? So now we will just do the new points. We got 0, 0, okay? And then we got 1, 1. And then we got 4, 2, right? And then we got 9, 3, and then we got 16, 4. Okay? So this is what a radical function of just square root x. Now it's important that you always kind of know what square root x is, because then if I start doing stuff to it, if I start stretching it or moving it or reflecting it or whatever, you'll know what it looked like in the first place. Okay? Now, what is the domain and range for square root x? So the domain. X has to be greater or equal to 0, right? Because it can be 0. And y is greater or equal to 0. Okay? Like I keep saying over and over, but the diploma loves domain and range questions. Okay? You'll do like all these 10 steps, and the final answer will be, what's the new domain and range? Okay? Now, the next page. Okay? If you read this over right now and you're like, hey, I've never seen that before, be afraid, be very afraid. Okay. So, this today is just doing transformations on square root x. Okay? So, look this stuff over. You got your reflections, vertical stretches, horizontal stretches. What's a reflection in y equals x, right? And if we were to build an equation, it would look like this, right? This doesn't really have a vertical stretch in it. But always remember, let's do them in S, R, and T. Okay. So, without our calculators, can we draw y minus 4 equals square root x plus 2? Now, I know since you guys are all experts in this, I just start picking people randomly to give me replacements and the word descriptions. Okay, so let's start off with replacements. Let's start with Aaron in the back corner there. Well, now here's my original, just up here, y equals square root x. What are my replacements, Aaron? Good. Okay, so in words, Ashley. In words, give me the description in words. What does y going to y minus 4? What does that mean? Okay, so it is be specific. What's it called? left. Okay? So the rest of you are probably freaking out at this point because I'm going to ask a lot of you these today. So right there. Okay, so how do we do this? Okay, so we take it. If I was to draw right over it, okay, I'm not making a new couch. I'm not flipping it. All I'm doing is moving it. Okay, so it's going to go to left and 1, 2, 3, 4 up. Okay, so it's going to look something like that. The question would now be, what is the new domain and what is the new range? So what would be the domain of this? Greater equal to -2, and the range, y is greater than or equal to 4. Okay? So what makes these questions hard is when they just go. If there's the picture of y equals x squared, what would be the new domain and range of y minus 4 plus x plus 2? And students get overwhelmed because they want to go right from looking at that to do domain, right? Well, you got to slow down. First thing you got to do is replacements. Then you've got to do it in words. Then I would draw it. Okay? Then you will go and do domain and range, usually by the picture, right? Okay. Let's do B. Okay, replacements. Go with Aaron Fenema. Sure. Remember, I don't want it in words. I just want replacements. No, that's words. I want the actual replacements. Remember my y equals root x. What's the replacements? Okay. And Tim. Okay, let's do it this order here that I have it written. It's not 2. Okay, next. Yeah, that's what I thought you said. Okay, so what's the good thing about today is we have to do transformations again. But at least we're reviewing it. We're like studying here for the first unit. Okay, so if I was to take this and I was actually to do a vertical stretch by a half, can you picture what a vertical stretch by a half would look like? Would it look like this? Is that a vertical stretch by a half? I'm like, hey, that looks pretty good. Everybody, tough crowd. Now, I will do a reflection on the y-axis. So then I will have something that looks like that. What's the domain? X is less than or equals 0. What's the range? Y is greater than or equal to 0. Now, does it make sense that x's are all going to be negative? Like, look at my equation. Can I put, for x, can I put a negative 5 in there? And will it give me an answer? Yeah, because it'll do square root of 10. But if I put a positive number like 5 in, negative 5 can't take. So positive integers or positive numbers are not allowed anymore. Okay? The picture should match the same domain and range that you'd be thinking of by just guessing and testing a few numbers. Okay, let's do D. Yes, I am. Thank you. Affirmative. Okay, but how would I make that with the Y? let's just do C without doing all the work, but let's get it set up correctly. What do I do with that negative? Do I just do this? Okay. Right. I've got to do those brackets, but I guarantee you that they will have that solution for you in the diploma. So you can even write not negative y plus 5 equals, because they will have this ready and waiting for you in the diploma. Well, negative y minus 5 is correct. It's wrong. It's wrong. Are you sure? Oh, see, I knew something was wrong. You don't have to say nothing. Yes. Never play poker against me. I'm good. I look, ooh, she's got a good hand. I'm folding right now. Okay. You don't have a poker face, is what I'm saying. Next one. Brendan. What are the replacements?
I guess replaced with 1/3 y. And x gets replaced with 2x. And x gets replaced with x minus 1.
Okay. Do you think this one is waiting for you on the diploma? Just ready, right? Okay. So Brendan, what makes you feel any better? The other person last class got wrong too. Okay. And who's ever listening to this video right now is going, what? That's what I would have done. Okay. What's wrong here? You always have to take the 2, so the x actually has no number in front of it by itself. Okay? So this will be x minus a half. Okay, and if you go back and look on your old formula or your old study sheet for this unit, okay, so how's this going to look? Okay, so let's call this 1 and this 2 and this 3. Okay, so remember, don't go right from here to the picture, because the picture equals the words. Remember that? Right? Okay, Reagan, give me the words. Oh, don't give him that. That was a close one. Okay. You can see how when we start studying everything for the diploma, how much things can start getting mixed up, right? Now, so if I did a vertical stretch by 3, it would first look like maybe something like that, right? So let's call that's 1. I did a vertical stretch by 3. Now what would happen if I did a horizontal stretch by half? It should even get more steep, eh? Okay. And now if I did a horizontal translation half a unit, right, then it would look something like maybe this, right? And this would be the point 1/2. Okay, domain. That x is greater or equal to 1/2, and y is greater or equal to 0. I guarantee you that x is greater or equal to 1 is one of the solutions they would have on the multiple choice. Again, it's all those little things, right? Those little things that kill you. Which was the reason why you guys were lower than the other classes is you were messing up on all those little things. And this one was just the opposite, right? It was very, very well done. All those little things that you guys have been getting wrong in the past. Now, this is a very difficult question. It's so difficult because of its simplicity in the asking of it. But this says just determine the domain and range of y equals a, b, the x. Like how hard can that be? And what would it be if a equals a is greater than 0 and b is greater than 0? How about if a is less than 0, b? I mean, every scenario, could you get the correct domain and range? Okay? Well, the first thing is to ask yourself is, do you know what it even looks like in the first place? Okay? So what's the domain here? This is x is greater or equal to 0, and y is greater or equal to 0, right? So that is like the foundation that you got to think about when you're doing these questions. Now, if a is greater than 0, what kind of number is that? It's a positive, and this is positive. Now, we don't like variables. We like numbers, okay? I wish they'd just give us numbers all the time. Use my calculator for something. But you can make your own numbers up. And for today, I'm going to use the number 5, okay? And students really understand this when I use the number 5, okay? But they don't understand it, and I'm like, come on, A is positive. Come on, it's positive. It's going to do this. And wouldn't it move here and this? And they're like, what? And then I do it with 5s, and they're like, oh, okay, I get it, okay? So does this fit the requirements? See how they're both positive, okay? But what kind of graph would this look like if it was 5 root 5x, okay? Okay, so we would have a vertical stretch by 5 and a horizontal stretch by 1/2, okay? Oh, sorry, 1/5, okay? So that would be, so the first thing is I want to draw what it used to look like, okay? And then I want to do a vertical stretch by 5, okay? So that thing's coming up here again, way up here, okay? So if this was the original, I'm going to call this 1 and this 2. So after 1, and then I'm doing the horizontal stretch by 5th. I'm going to bring it in even more. So this is why taping the notes is good, because when I used to do this, and if I gave out the notes, people were like, 5? Like, where'd you get the 5 from? I never saw where the 5 comes, right? And I'm like, oh, I made it up. And I'm like, oh, I was looking at, like, I was looking at the last book. I mean, I phoned my grandma and asked. I mean, I couldn't find where 5 was. Well, I made it up, okay, just for the purpose of, now by looking at this, is it easy to figure out domain and range? What's the domain? Greater or equal to 0, and y is greater or equal to 0. Okay, now let's make a -5 and b 5, right? It says a has to be less than 0, and b has to be, I mean, hey, if you want to make b always 4, maybe that's a better idea, okay? So anyway, this is y equals -5 times 5 to the x. Okay? So maybe I'm going, you know what, I'm just going to get this set up a little better. This is the same thing as -1/5 y to the 5, or equals root 5 over x. Okay? Now that's for my own purposes because a few things are going on there. Now, what are those few things, Emily? Okay? So, you know, don't go too far. Let's just do that. Remember, here was the original. And if I do a vertical stretch by 5, that baby's coming up about here. I do a horizontal stretch by 1/5, it's coming up here. And then if I do a reflection in the x-axis, I would get something that looked kind of like this. Right? That's my final. So by looking at that, domain, greater or equal to 0, range, y is less than or equal to 0. Again, if I just said, okay, guys, if this is positive and this is negative, we take this over here and we do this, isn't it going to be like under like in quadrant 4? Since we're like, I have no idea, I'll just memorize this. But I'm kind of trying to show you another thing. If your memory fails on you, first of all, do a square root x, see what it looks like, pick your own numbers to put in, okay? Because if I was just doing this purely with the calculator, I would put y equals negative 5 root 5x, and I'd look at it, and I would do my domain and range, okay? So let's just do these last two. If A is positive and B is negative, so that's positive 5, that's negative 5. So y equals 5 root negative 5x. Right away, students go, you can't do it because there's a negative underneath. Whew, that was an easy one, okay? And they have that answer there for you, okay? But hey, if x is negative now, do you see how negative times negative 5 will be positive? So don't jump too fast to go non-real for the x and non-real for the y, okay? Because they'll have that one there for you because they want you to go right now negative. Okay, you can't. We've learned that so many times. Oh, I know this one, okay? And you could graph this and it would give you a graph. Now, remember, this is 5 or 1/5 y equals negative 5x, okay? So, let's go with Willem. In words, what's happening?
Vertical stretch by a factor of 5. Reflection, or I guess vertical, horizontal stretch by 1/5. And then reflection.
Is that a reflection in the x?
Oh, y.
Okay. So you can see how tough these questions are because your domain and range would be wrong if you just made that one mistake. Okay. So here's my original. Here's like after vertical by 5. Here's a vertical or horizontal by 1/5, and then a reflection in the y is right there. Okay. So here would be my final answer. Yep. Yes. And x and inverses. Yeah. Okay. Um, domain. What's domain? Less than or equal to 0. And greater or equal to 0. Okay. Last one. We're going to make them both negative. So this would be y equals negative 5 root negative 5x. Okay, so that would be negative 1/5 y equals root negative 5x. Okay, Corey, in words, what happened? Okay, so we draw it. I have my, here's the original vertical stretch by 5, horizontal by 1/5, reflection on X, and reflection on Y. This will be my final right here. Okay, domain, X is less than or equal to 0, range, Y is less than or equal to 0. Okay? You'll need to know how to do these for the diploma and for the unit exam. Okay? They may look easy now because we did them with 5s. They're really, really hard to understand if you keep them too theoretical. Okay? When you're ever losing track of stuff, put numbers in to get your bearings back. Okay, so we got 1, 2, AC, and 3 to 5.